Hi.
Hi, Kate. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Happy to see you.
Yes, welcome back to the third meeting in this agendas. How about your day today?
It's okay. Just it's okay. The middle of the semester, so let's start with meeting with you, and then there's some classes in the university. So everything is okay. How is your day?
Okay. In Indonesia, it's a rainy day, so we have hard rain tomorrow.
Oh.
Sorry, yesterday. And today I only have 2 class in this morning and this evening, like that.
Oh, but heavy rain. Is it often? Is it often rainy?
Often rain. Almost every day we have rainy day until around April or May, and then dry season from May until August, like that every year.
Oh.
It's the best day for traveling or vacation in May until August usually.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I think it doesn't matter where you live. From May to August is the best time to travel. I think it is for any nation, for any country.
Okay. Okay, are you ready for the?
Yeah, I'm ready. I would like to ask about time. Last time we finished earlier. Do we need to do the same story today to finish earlier or not?
Okay, what is the agenda for this meeting? Data practice or material about time series?
Yeah, last time we discussed and we find that we have only 2 meetings last, and that's why I changed a little bit the plan of all topics. And the most important thing for me is to give VAR model. It is the most important thing, and that's why today I would like to start from VAR estimations, from explanation of what does it mean, how we could it just how we could implement it, how we could explain it. And so I will just start today from VAR model. And then if we have time after our 4th meeting, I will discuss window estimations. I've already said that it's very common in data analysis, and so I changed places of some topics. So this is the plan.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's interest topics for today, and continue about far in the last meeting, like that. Okay, you can share about your.
Okay, I could start. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe I will opening in Indonesia before and say hello to our students.
Yeah, sure.
Oke. Oke, selamat pagi semuanya. Selamat pagi rekan-rekan mahasiswa. Ya, saya harap untuk pertemuan ketiga ini rekan-rekan mahasiswa bisa lebih fokus ya untuk mendengarkan atau menyimak penjelasan dari Ekaterina Maltenisova, dan kalian juga bisa menuliskan atau menjadi notes tersendiri, karena saya yakin materi ini mungkin belum secara mendalam didiskusikan di kelas seperti itu, tetapi saya yakin nanti suatu hari nanti pasti akan berfungsi gitu, karena ini mengenai data time series. Sehingga rekan-rekan sekalian silakan disimak dengan sebaik mungkin, kemudian juga silakan mungkin juga dicatat hal-hal yang penting gitu ya, jangan hanya mengikuti kelas ini dengan ala kadarnya gitu, atau hanya join aja habis gitu ditinggal melakukan kegiatan yang lain gitu. Sangat disayangkan sekali kalau misalkan hal itu terus-terusan terjadi sama kalian ya. Nanti kalau misalkan waktu skripsi ditanyain nggak bisa lagi, nggak tahu lagi, salah lagi gitu kan. Kasihan banget ya. Oke, sekian dari saya. Mungkin silakan disimak dengan sebaik mungkin. Oke, Kate. I think it's enough for me to open the discussion with my student in Indonesia, because some students like roomings when you explain about the econometrics material, and I stimulus them to still focus and still enjoy the discussion like that. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your help, for your support, because for sure it's quite complicated topic and complicated subject, but it's very useful.
Yes.
Honestly, very useful. So maybe if you are not ready to be involved totally in the topic, but just try to understand something, because it will help you in the future when you will need some data analysis or something like this. Thank you very much. So I could start, right?
Okay. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to tell a little about changes, to discuss some changes in the course. After last time discussion, I understood that we have just a lack of time, and today, based on our previous primary plan, I had to give you a topic about rolling window and recursive estimations. But as I understood that we have only two last classes, and I understand that it's quite important to have a skill to make estimations for VAR estimations. That's why today we will start from VAR estimations, from understanding of VAR estimations, of implementation of VAR estimations, and so on and so forth. So I changed these blocks, these topics, this change, these places, their places. And then if I have everything okay, if I understand that everything is okay for VAR estimation, that we end VAR estimations, that everything is okay here, we will just come back and discuss rolling window. Because if you don't know it, if you don't have skills to estimate it, you could read about it, you could just look some YouTube, for example, but for VAR estimations, here it is a little bit problem, and you need to discuss it somehow with researchers to understand how it works. And again, to begin with VAR estimations, I will remind you data that we used for Indonesia. I remember our first meeting, we discussed that there are some data sources where I could take data. I could take M2 for Indonesia, I could take consumer price index and intermediate rate for it. So these first three will be used, and in a minute I will explain you how you'll use it. So M2, what does it mean? I will explain you, and why did we take it. CPI, what does it mean? And immediate rates. So based on these three variables, we will try to estimate VAR model. And at the same time, we understand what does it mean, how I could use VAR model, what is it? And so it will just help you to understand the theory. So I will try to start from practice, and based on implementation of this practice and realization of these estimations, at the same time, I will try to explain you what does it mean to make a VAR estimations model. So let's start. And again, today there are two of me on the meeting, so two accounts, because I have two equipments. One is a computer, that screen you could see right now, and the second is a blackboard where I could try to emphasize some important things. So just this is a plan. So if we have any questions, any comments during our lecture, please let me know. We will change it to make it better and better. So today we will discuss, as I already mentioned, VAR model overview and its estimations, its implementation, why, if you're an economist, if you would like to make research, especially in macroeconomics and finance, you will face with this model without any doubt. So it has some autoregressive models, and remember that the first time, and second meeting, not first one, we didn't have time that time. So during our second meeting, we discussed forecast of GDP, and it was usual autoregressive model. So we just took this part of VAR model. And then we discussed, okay, but we could also have some other time series for other variables. And so VAR is n variable, n equation model. And now it's quite difficult, and you say, what does it mean? N variables, n equations model, a linear function of its past values and past values of other variables, how I could understand it. So that's why let's take our example for Indonesia. Let's start from this one. So imagine that you are interested in monetary policy. What does monetary policy mean? You have central bank. It is a bank of all banks. So central bank is the most important bank in your country. In any country, central bank is the most important one. And the goal of the central bank is to provide price stability. So the stability of price, the stability of economic situation in your country. Central bank has one main instrument, one main mechanism. It is interest rate. So central bank, I will just maybe right now to stop it and to present you the proposals, like discussion of the situation to understand how we will generate it in VAR model. So I'll wait a minute. I will do it right here, and I will show you the screen. I don't know why I'm so dark right now. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not so dark anymore. So wait a minute. This is for Russian students. I'm sorry. So the problem is that we have central bank. Not problem, that is this situation. We have central bank in our country, and central bank would like to manage prices, because if we wait for inflation, we behave ourselves in some sense. If we wait for deflation, we behave ourselves in another sense. So for central bank, it is very important to have a look on prices. And central bank have its main instrument. It is interest rate. And for sure, this interest rate influence on price level in the economy. And from the opposite side, for sure, we do understand if price is growing. For example, I don't know, you have some external shock, or for example, oil prices are going up, or something else happens. So if prices changes, I don't know why, it's not so important what is the reason, but price is changing, it is for sure also influence on interest rate. So central bank with interest rate influence on price in the economy, and price, if it changes, for example, based on some external factors, for sure influence on interest rate. Honestly, central bank try to influence not just on the market price, first of all on money supply. Money supply named M2. M2 it is the amount of money in your economy. So it is equal to deposits that you have in your economy, deposits and reserves of banks. I'm so sorry, no, not reserves, I'm sorry. Deposits plus cash. Deposits plus cash. So any cash that is in your economy plus deposits of your commercial banks and others, so money supply. So again, interest rate influence on money supply, and money supply influence on price changes. And so we would, all these three factors, they are closely connected with each other. So and when central bank make a decision to change interest rate, it is interesting. Okay, I change it on 1%. What does it mean for me in change of price level? So if I change it on 1%, how will price level change? So this is a question that always keep in mind central bank. So we have three variables. We have interest rate, we have money supply, and we have price level. And we would like to understand how interest rate depends on price and money supply, how money supply depends on price and interest rate, and how price depends on interest rate change and money supply. So if I put it just right here again, so I have interest rate, I have price, and I have money, and I would like to know what is the dependence, what is the level of influence on them, price level and money. And I would like here to know, okay, and what is the effect of monetary policy and money change here? And okay, here, okay, and just if I change interest rate, how will money change and price change? How does it affect on money supply? So these questions I keep in my mind. Also, I understand that these variables, they are macroeconomic variables, they depend on themselves in the previous period of time. So I understand that, for example, interest rate depends on itself in the last period of time. Because, for example, if your central bank announced the policy of low interest rates, so your central bank said, okay, I just would like to support my economy and I will decrease interest rate every meeting. So your next level of interest rate will depend from the previous value, and because it's policy, because it's just like announcement of your central bank. The same story with price. If you know this, or if you remember macroeconomics, there is a theory that consumers, they just wait for price level based on the previous period of time. So if last period of time you had high interest, sorry, not interest, price level. If last year you had high price level, it means that this period of time you will also wait for a high level of price, because you remember last year you observed high price level there. So you just try to make a forecast of the future of maybe today's price level based on your past. So here again, we said, okay, but price level depends on itself, maybe from the previous period of time, maybe not even one period of time, maybe two periods of time. So just, I don't know how long I'm dependent from my own levels. And the last but not the least, money supply. For sure, it's a huge amount. And if you had a huge amount of money last period of time, for sure, this period of time, you will still have a lot of money. You couldn't be just poor in a second. No, just if you are rich last period of time, if you had a lot of money in last period of time, it's obvious that during this time you will have also a lot of money here. So just we have some things here that money supply really depends on its previous levels, and we have money supply here previous time. But this is not the end of the story. As the economist, I understand that, for example, if I took the first equation, for example, I'm sorry, I have just problems here. If I took the first equation, I will understand, okay, but the interest rate is not affected only price level during this period of time. Maybe this policy of today's central bank, it is an explanation of consequences of past prices. So maybe price in the previous period of time was high, and that is the reason why central bank try to keep my interest rates too high. I give you an example. For example, Russian Federation. Last year we had a huge price level because of external shock, because of shock that we had in international sense, and we had a quite high price level. And that's why 1 year passed, but our central bank still try to control price level because with interest rate, because it understands that if price level was too high only 1 year ago, so maybe something happens in here and we will also have problems just in the nearest future. So what does it mean for us as for researchers? As for researchers, it means that if you have first equation for interest rate, and you try to figure out what factors influence on it, I understand, okay, some factors from the same period of time, CPI, price. In macroeconomics, sometimes it is called CPI, so consumer price indexes. It is an index that defines the level of price in your economy. So money, at the same time, money supply, I mean, influence on your level. We also understand that there are some lags of previous interest rates. I don't know, maybe the policy of central bank last year, last 2 years, also influence on it. And the last but not the least, but maybe these variables 1 year past or 2 years past also influence on it. So maybe here you just also observe in the policy of your central bank the consequences of some changes that took place 1 year or 2 years ago. So this is first equation. Why first equation? Because this is for interest rate. So and you answer the question, when when central bank makes a decision, how do you think? How is it thinking? So okay, your central bank decide to announce interest rate, but how it defines the level of this interest rate, how it understands, okay, I need to put 10%, not 5%. So in this equation will be the answer for you. So you understand that in macroeconomics, everything is connected with each other. So I have monetary policy, it is affected by price level in your economy, price level previous period of time, money supply during this period and maybe some previous period of time, and your previous decision if you are central bank. So if we're talking about second equation, for our case, I'm sorry, it is, for example, for price. And we will try to understand how price level in my economy is affected by monetary policy. First of all, again, I say, okay, my price level depends from the previous levels of price. So if I had high level of price last year, it is a higher possibility that I have higher price this level this year as well. So from another side, I have here interest rate and policy of central bank, because sometimes price need time to react, because there is also macroeconomic policy that in short term prices doesn't change at all, so just doesn't react so quickly, and it needs time to react for interest rates. And okay, money supply, again, not only from this period of time, but also from the previous period of time. So you say, okay, I have a look on money and I have a look on monetary policy, and would like to understand what is dependence, what is the situation with these variables here. So anyway, this is the second equation. You understand that these three variables, price, money, and interest rate, somehow depends from each other, somehow influence on each other. Someone has high influence, someone not. Maybe someone doesn't influence at all. For example, money supply. We don't know. We are interested in it. We are asking the question. And the third equation, I won't put it here because I think it's clear right now. The third one will be for money supply. And we also will discuss in the same way. Okay, money supply depends from its own level previous year and last 2 years, maybe 3 years. We will discuss how to define lags, and it depends on central bank's policy, its interest rate, its money supply, and so just about all these factors. So I think that this is as a story about how we asking ourselves about VAR implementation, because here we discuss the economic problem that I would like to answer, to solve. I would like to understand how monetary policy is affected by economic situation in your country, and vice versa, how instrument of central bank, how central bank interest rate influence on price level and money supply. So after this, I would like to return back to presentation and continue discussing with formula. They are a little bit scaring, so I'm sorry here, but still we need it. So here is a small picture of that we discussed right now. It is a small one, and there are some theories in macroeconomics, and some of them says, okay, in macroeconomics, I got used to that. Sometimes in short-term period, we have just fixed level of price. And I remember it, but I would like to test. So here is scaring formula here. And I'm sorry, but I do need to show them. But here I would like to say that here it is X, I mean X1 and X2. So this is a mistype, I'm sorry. So just you have equation for X1 for CPA and for M2. So you have just here is interest rate. The interest rate depends from its previous level, as we discussed, because central bank makes a decision, and each next decision depends on what did it do in the previous period of time, and it depends on CPI in the previous period of time, and it depends on money supply in the previous time, and for sure some disturbance as usual. And here is the story when you there are two equations, honestly, so for X1 and for X2. For X1 for M2 for money supply, and money supply depends on interest rate, depends on each own level in the previous time. It depends on prices and disturbance as well. So don't make you scared. Let's just discuss how I start my estimations. Before start, remember last time we discussed what should I do if I faced with non-stationarity. And in a minute, we will discuss it because it's obvious that money supply, CPI, and interest rate, they are not stationary at all. So we need to do something, and we will discuss what will we do. So they are not with legs here. You see here is the variable, so price level, interest rate, and money supply. And here without legs, so just I didn't use leg, I didn't use differences at all. I would like to demonstrate you how I test them for stationary, how I used Dickey-Fuller test. So okay, I'll just demonstrate you the most important things, and if you didn't do it in Stata, it won't work at all. So first of all, you need to find time variable. You need to create time variable inside your data and print t set t. So it means that you said to Stata, okay, I have time variable. Its name is t. So it is time variable, which is from 1 to 268, and it changed for 1 each day. So on 1, it is changing on 1. So I have only 268 variables here for common variables. Remember when I demonstrated you money supply, interest rate, and price level, I said to you that unfortunately for money supply, if I'm not mistaken, we will have a look at right now. I had only quite small period of time, so I have small time series. And that's the reason why I had to cut all other variables, unfortunately. So this is a bad thing, but still I had to do it. And I implemented Dickey-Fuller test for price level. And you see here, I found that it's not stationary. And again, I did the same story for rate. And again, I found no stationary, because here I couldn't reject null hypothesis, and then I based my estimations and made conclusion about non-stationarity of my variables. And again, for money supply, but I know the end of the story, but still I would like to demonstrate you how I do it in Stata. For sure, we understand it, because if we are talking about, remember last time we discussed it, if we are talking about macroeconomics variables such as money supply, we understand it has trend. So on top of this data, there is a trend, and that's the reason why this variable is growing from day to day. And if I have trend, it is a problem for estimations. And I need to do something. Sometimes it is natural logarithm, sometimes it is change in the natural logarithm. And so just anyway, you need to think about it. What did I do? I just made new variables. First of all, I used natural logarithm of all variables. So here is natural logarithm of all variables. And then I made change. So you see D means differential. So I just make a change of this natural logarithm. And as a result, I also made this test, and I found that everything is okay right now. So right now, when you understand that you will use in your model natural logarithm, you need to think about how you will explain your estimations. Remember, I said you, maybe here, wait a minute, I said you during our first meetings that you need to think about explanation of your estimations, I'm sorry, here. So our version is here. So we use natural logarithm for all variables, and we will test dependence of it for all variables. So this is our version. So when we get estimations, it will be easy for us to explain them. When we will get estimation, we will say, okay, it means that if, for example, one variable is growing on 1%, it means that the final version, the final variable, so the dependent variable also increases on 1%. So this is story, and this is quite important. That's why I put it just in the beginning of our discussion, because you need to keep in mind, what did you do with your variables? We used natural logarithm and changes in natural logarithm, and it means that for our explanation, we will use this equation. So it's easier, and thanks Stata that it allows us to do it, because they are stationarity, and there is no non-stationarity. They're stationary, and we could use it without any doubt. So keep it in mind that you have natural logarithm. You also need to put it in your article for your reviewers and for your readers to understand what did you do. I had a huge plans, but now it's obvious that I don't have time for it. And I think that we didn't have time for VCAM models. It is, I think, it's the next step of WAR. And maybe you will just try to analyze and to find it, just to read about it later with your own. But still, if you make it, if you are interested in VCAM models, so it requires just integrated of first order. So we didn't test it, so because there is some tests how to understand the level of co-integration. We just for VAR, it is important to make something with your variables to make them stationary. If you succeed in it, don't think about VCAM models. But if you have problems with it, and just try to think, okay, but maybe I have integration of first order, and then I could just test it without any doubt. I was curious about how my new variables looks like. So I asked Stata, you could ask them it with TC line function. And I asked Stata to put on the graph lines for change in rate, change in money supply, and change in price. I would like to have a look on it. And here is the graph, and you could observe here that everything is okay. I suggest that there is stationary here, that this time series is stationary, and everything is okay. So I think so. I don't see any problems here, so just everything is okay. So sometimes you may, I don't know, to use histograms for this purpose or something like this, but for me it's okay. Test of Ziki Fuller and graph, I see it here. So first of all, I don't know lag lengths. I remember we didn't make tests for this, but it's okay, wait a little bit. Later we will discuss it. So for now, I don't know lags. I would like to show you how these estimations looks like. So I don't know, we don't discuss lags. So we ask our Stata to use lags as it thinks, so without any comments here. And again, later, I think after break, maybe, we will discuss order, because you see here, I didn't think about order. I just put rate, money supply, and price as I wish, but really the order matters. And we will discuss it later because there is Cholesky decomposition, and we need to take it into mind when we make some estimations. So there are, and I would like to demonstrate you and to explain what do we have here. So here is several equations. So in this equation, this is equation number 1, this is equation number 2, and this is equation number 3. And let's analyze it. So this one, I would like to maybe to put somewhere here the formula and to explain you. So you see, in this case, we have some, first of all, we have a look on p-value. And you know that p-value, if it is less than 5%, as an usual regression, if your p-value is lower than 5%, it means that you reject the null hypothesis about 0 level of coefficient. So if it is lower than 5% or 0.05, so you could take into account this variable because the coefficient with the high probability is not equal to 0. However, I could understand it in another way. You see, there is an interval and 0 is not in it. 0 is not in it. And here, for example, 0, this interval includes 0. So it means that this coefficient could be equal to 0. And now I would like to maybe to demonstrate you how I could, wait a minute, how I could, I would like, here, how I could rewrite this equation for myself. So I make it a little bit bigger and say, okay, let's understand what does this table means. Okay, I will just put here a formula and I will just put it right here. I'm sorry. Yeah, here. So first equation. Here is I have interest rate. So I just put here my interest rate. I'm sorry. Interest rate for this period of time. So interest rate for this period of time. Not interest rate, but even natural logarithm. Remember, I just used natural logarithm. Sorry, natural logarithm of it. And is equal to not even natural logarithm. I used change in natural logarithm. So just here, let's have a look here. So is equal to, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why, but it's thinking. So 0.55 here is a coefficient, and we observe it is significant. So 0.55 on natural logarithm of the same story of the previous period of time, t-1, and here we observe, okay, the policy of central bank in the previous period also important. So I use the same story here, okay, and minus 0.137, and here I have a look for 2 period last our interest rate. For money supply, I also have, okay, money supply influence on my interest rate. And here I put money supply in the previous period of time. In the previous period of time, here is 0.47 for money supply in the previous period of time. Now, this one, I don't like it because you see, p-value doesn't allow me to include this variable in my equation, and I don't put it because this coefficient could be equal to 0. So I don't need it because 0 multiplied something like this is 0. So I don't take it. Here, the same story. I don't take the price level of the previous period of time, but I do include the price level of 2 periods of time before. So I just put it right here, and I just here and CPI here, and the last, you see the constant variable, it is also have a just it is also significant. I could put it here, sorry, it is minus 0.1. So this is the equation, first equation. Let's have a think, what does it mean? Remember that it's not final version, it's not the final one, because we don't understand lags. We didn't discuss orders, but I would like you to understand how you could think about result that you observe. Let's think about it. So first of all, I would like to start from the end. The higher price level are, so if price level increase on 1%, it means that central bank is thinking about increasing interest rate on 0.83%. So almost the same. It is a true story, because if in your country there is a huge or it's a big inflation, central bank increase the interest rate because it's try to start and to stop, impulse to start influence on inflation. It tried to stop inflation and it increased interest rate. So the true story, quite true story. And here's about money supply. If money supply is growing, the same story. Central bank is thinking next period of time, okay, money supply is growing, it is huge, I need to do something. And what should I do if I'm central bank? Yeah, for sure, I need to increase the interest rate. Without any doubt, I increase it. And here I observe, okay, so my money supply is increasing. Okay, I just also increase the interest rate as a result. So I'm totally satisfied with science of this coefficient. I'm totally satisfied for explanation and economy and macroeconomics theory help. And here I see that monetary policy depends on 2 periods of time. So it's impossible for you, if you are central bank, just to say, okay, this period of time I will make it such way, and next period of time I will change my mind. It doesn't work in such way. So you need to be to take some understandable and clear actions for your economy. And that's why here and here and here we will have some just dependence. And you see it depends on the previous level, and a little bit with negative sign depends on level 2 years before. And I remind you that we don't have years here, we have quarters. So we have quarters, and that's why that plus and minus for different quarters, it doesn't mean that, okay, what something strange has happened. It means that your central bank try to find the balance. It's okay. In our case, this part is a autoregression, and this part is a dependence from variables from previous period of time. So this part is just how you depends on your other variables, and this part is how you balance between your level during last years, last quarters, last days, and nowadays. So it's not a problem that here is a plus, here is a minus, and sometimes it is even not explainable because you just observe it and you say, okay, it depends on it, and okay, somehow it depends on it, but okay, just we take it into account, and it is. So, and the same story, you could do the same thing for second equation, when money supply could be from this part, and we see money supply depends on interest rate, and the same story, and it's whole. So money supply depends on only interest rate, and So here it is a story. And for price level, it depends on interest rate again. Here I have also interest rate, money supply to periods of time, and price dependent itself. So again, you could just tell the story here. But for me, as I mentioned, the most interesting thing was to understand how interest rate, how central bank reacts on behavior of your economy. So for my research and for research that I present you, the most interest is first table, but still VAR estimations provide you not one, as we also discussed. So it provides you several equations. And now I could again return back to the definition. And you see, VAR models gives you autoregressive model and allow multivariable time series. What is n variables? Now we understand what does it mean. In our case, it's 3 variables, 3 equations model. We have 3 equations in our sense, in our case, which express each variable as a linear function of its own past values. We observed it for interest rate. The past values of other variables, we also observe it for interest rate, and the serial autocorrelation error term. So this is now, I think, after discussion of our economic model, it's a little bit more clear for you what does VAR model means. So I need to ask colleagues about breaks. Do we need it or we don't need it? I need your advice.
Okay, thank you very much, Kate. It's so really interesting explanation about VAR method. Yeah, I think in the part of time series models. But if you can summarize the detail of materials, what are the characteristics of VAR and what are the main character of using VAR? How about the specification data for using in the VAR like that, or what moments it's so really important to use VAR like that?
Okay. It's a great question, because we have a lot of tools today for researcher, and when I need to understand that we have VAR a little bit further, when we finish the estimation, we will discuss it. But right now, there are main characteristics that I understand I need VAR. First of all, you have, for example, you're analyzing a lot of variables and you don't sure about connection between them. So a lot of macroeconomics variable, and you don't understand because nobody knows. For example, interest rate influence on price, or price influence on interest rate. So you have a pool of macroeconomics variable, and you really doubt about connection inside this pool, and you need to test and to understand the character of this influence. And because further, we will just also Granger test causality. It helps you to a little bit further. So you have a lot of variables. You would like to understand how do they connect with each other. And also, if you would like to understand the reaction for shocks, because we will also discuss impulse reaction. So for example, you are thinking about, okay, but if interest rate is increasing on 1%, what happens? And when the effect will be totally eliminated. So because it's obvious, when something happened, I react. And then time passed and I say, okay, I'm not reacting anymore. So any variable reacts on the change in other variable, and during a long period of time, it returned back. So this is a question that we are thinking about.
Okay, so I think we can use the data elaboration to use VAR, and the fluctuation of the data maybe in the past period and in the period and the next period like that. Yes. Okay. Yeah. And one more, Kate. If you can represent about the output of Stata, can you
Sure.
output
Sure. Here, okay.
Yes. Okay. It means if we read about the coefficient and the t-test or p more than z, like that, is about the coefficient and the significance about the variables, like that.
Yeah, because you see, you could read it here or you could read it here. For example, because the main problem is if your coefficient, there is a probability that your coefficient is equal to 0. Because if it's equal to 0, it means that this variable doesn't influence on this variable. And you could test it two ways. First, p-value. And second, to check these intervals, if 0 is inside it, so 0 is not inside this one, 0 is not inside this one, 0 is not inside this one. So this is the beginning, this is the end of interval. But 0 is in this interval.
Okay.
So yes, 0 belongs this interval. Oh, no. This means that money supply with leg 2 could be equal to 0. So I don't include it in my equation.
Okay. Okay. And this in this output we have three variables here: rate, money supply, and CPI, like that. So we can we can use the correlation about each variables, like that.
Yeah. So I could put here second, and I could put here, for example, M2. And for M2, I have only one case where I'm sure that this coefficient is not equal to 0, because in our case, 0 is inside all these intervals. So for this one, I have only interest rate for previous level, and here is 0.52. And I need to eliminate all these ones, and the constant is this plus, and here is 0.0144. So this is this is the equation. So just because all others variables, they didn't get test for high probability of not equal to 0 coefficient, or maybe coefficient are equal to 0, because 0 are inside of these two numbers. So that's why I didn't take this.
Okay. Yes, I think it's really important when we can read the output of Stata, and we can quick to analyze how about the correlation or how about the impact of each variable, like that. Okay, it's so amazing, Kate, what you're explaining for us. Okay, students, do you have some question to Kate?
Before the break,
Before
we could
the
make
break,
some.
yes. I think no question in the
maybe they are thinking. So it's okay, it's normal. It's
but
normal.
Maybe they are rooming or like that.
Yeah, so anyway, just I think it's a little bit scary to observe a lot of information in formulas and stata, so it's okay.
Okay. Yes, maybe at the break times, a student can write a notes or some question. Maybe you can take a break. Take a break in the maybe 10 minutes, like that.
10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you. See you. Okay, I'm just again, what is going on with it? Why I'm so dark? Okay, so I would like to ask about time of our end of our meeting, because last time I remember we said that we need to finish at 9:15. What about today? How much time do you have?
Same with the last meeting, because
Okay.
In Indonesia still in fasting month, so
Okay, I'm sorry.
time is
Okay.
until 9:15.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much. Okay, so I will continue just because the great news that we have one more meeting in a week, so we will finish all this discussion. And for now, I would like maybe to return back to the equation and again to write down the third one to demonstrate you the basic idea again. So let me share the screen here. So and this is the third one. So again, here I have a look. There is the end of the table, and I put it here. So this table I put here just for more convenience. So don't take a look here because it is the same. And the last is for CPI for price level. And here there are more variables that I could influence. You see, for this interval, there is no zero inside it. So I could put here the variable for interest rate, and what's next? Zero is inside this interval, so I didn't take it. In this interval, there is no zero, so I could take this variable. This is for money supply previous period of time, so I could take this one. I could take this one, and here 275 and money supply. And about this one, you see zero is inside this interval. And as concerns me, for me, I don't take such variable in the equation. But I faced and I saw some researchers who included in their publications because sometimes they say about 12%, 10% of p-value. But if you are talking about me, as concern me, I don't take this into account. So you see zero is inside this interval. So that's why I don't take this variable. So, and again, this is a perfect one because there is no zero in this interval, and I could take it and I could include it into my equation. So here is 0 for 2 and CPI, and no lag for 2 and no constant, because for constant in this case I see that 0 is in this interval. So these are 3 equations that I could put and I could write down in my case. And honestly, when I made it for your course, I found some strange thing. So remember how we explain this equation. Let's maybe just have, I just demonstrate you how you could explain estimations. So let's have this one. And you remember that we said, okay, for this equation, what does it mean? It means that if interest rate increases on 1%, it means that in 1% in the previous period of time, it means in 1%, in the previous period of time, it means that during this period, it increases on 0.55%. It's more interesting for M and for money supply and for interest rate, for price rate. For example, if money supply increases on 1%, it means that the interest rate increases on, increases on 0.47%. And it is true because I know it from theory. I know it because if money supply is growing, so money is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, central bank increase interest rate to stop credits, to stop loans, to make it more expensive. And that's why money supplies stop growing. So it is true, and I'm happy here, it is true. And the last but not the least, if CPI, I mean price, increases on 1%, it means that GDP, or not GDP, sorry, it means that interest rate will increase on almost the same, so just quite almost 1% as well. It is also true. So when your price is higher and higher, your central bank try to fix it, try to do something to stop growing of the price. It's okay. The problem is another one. So this is the first equation. I don't like, honestly, the second equation. And when I did it, I understood that there is a problem somewhere. I will show you next time, I think, where is the problem. So as we already discussed, there are some issues for this explanation. There are some tests that you need to take into account. And what is the problem here that I found? You see, if I try to explain my results here, I will do it in such a way. If interest rate increases on 1%, it means that money supply will increase. Why increase? Because I have plus. You see here is a plus on 0.5%. I'm sorry, 0.5%. And here is the question, because usually in macroeconomics, we know that when interest rate increases, money supply should go down. So here, I think that somewhere in my model, there is a problem. Where, first of all, remember, we didn't discuss lags. So we didn't discuss lag for now. We will make it a little bit further, maybe next time. So, and order matters. We will find that when you make VAR estimations, think about lags, think about orders. And my main goal to implement VAR estimations is to understand how this variable influence on each other and how they change the value of each other. And the third one as well, I'm really doubt in it because you see, I have estimations. And the most important idea here is that estimations without explanation is nothing. So you need to think about economic sense of your estimations, because if you just make estimations for estimations, you don't think about economic sense, you don't think about consequences, it's not right thing, because sometimes estimations could give you some strange results. As for example, in our second equation, it is quite strange results here. And I need to think about it and to find some problems. So that's the reason why when students ask me, how do you understand that you made effective estimations? How did you understand that the process of getting estimations is okay? For sure, there are a lot of tests, and you could make a lot of tests for your model, and you will observe that this model, our model, gives us perfect test estimations. So estimations are perfect in opinion of Stata, but in my opinion, as macroeconomics and as person who made a lot of research in macroeconomics, I really doubt in these estimations, because here, first of all, I had plus and I had a positive influence of interest rate on monetary supply, money supply. And here, have a look on this, at the same story, I have a positive influence. So this one is okay. So good news is, for example, if money supply grows on 1%, it means that price will grow on 0.275%. It means, I'm sorry. So it's okay. It is a good news, because from macroeconomics, I know it. If money supply is growing and it's bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, price is going up. So it's okay. I don't like this one. I don't like that if interest rate is growing on 1%, if interest rate is growing on 1%, CPI is growing on 0.025%, and it's quite strange for me in terms of macro, because I know from macroeconomics that it is not true, because I just if I increase interest rate, the purpose of increasing of this increase is to stop growing of CPI, of inflation, and I need somehow to control it. And the result that I have right now is talking me the opposite side. So I know there is some problems, and I would like to solve it. Honestly, I know what is the problem is, because I made all these tests. But imagine that you are making this research with me. So we found time series. We found that they are not stationary. We made them stationary. We made VAR estimations. First equation, we fall in love with this. So this one is perfect. And we found that there are problems with the second and the third equation. And let's move together. Let's move together and let's think together what is the problem could be. So let's think together. First of all, remember here I said we don't have lag estimations right now, because we asked Stata to use any number it would like. So just here, let's fix it. So let's just understand lag length. What does it mean? Honestly, each macroeconomics variable has its own not like definition, but like level of dependence from lags of other variables. And you see here we have two legs. I'm sorry, I will just demonstrate you. Here you have two legs, and it was defined accidentally. So Stata just offer you to use two legs, but there is the optimal length. And there are different criteria to understand what is the best lag lengths. And importance of right choice of lag lengths could be explained by two main reasons. If lag length is too small, so if you, for example, used only one lag period, and the model will be misspecified. If lag is too large, it degrades freedom of our race. So you need to find the optimal lag length. How could you make it? There are different criteria. Don't be afraid. I will show you formula and equation of this criteria, but you remember I said you that you don't need to understand in details all mathematical issues. You need to understand what does it mean in economic sense. Because we are not mathematicians, we are just researchers in economics, and that's why we need to understand how these tests could help us. And the most important story, that there should be no autocorrelation at the selected leg, and we will test it as well. So just here, don't be afraid. We don't, just for information, we don't need these statistics, but here are three main statistics that helps you to understand legs length. Forget about it, because we have function in Stata, and Stata will help us, and I will show you how to understand the best number of legs. So first of all, you make var SOC after var estimation. So you make var estimations first of all, and after that you ask Stata var SOC. Remember again, first of all, I will just show you. First of all, you make here. First of all, you make t-set. Remember here, you create time variables. You make t-set, and your Stata understand that you have time variables. Second, you test Dickey-Fuller. You test stationary. When you finally get stationary time series, like in our case, you make var estimations. It doesn't matter, is it good or bad, you just make it. So time variable, so stationary, and just make var estimations. You put var here, you see here var, and your variables in the line. It doesn't matter, is it good or bad, it's not matter, just make it. When you made it, only after that, only when you all these things, you made all these things, only after that you could put var SOC, just this function after time series, after time variable, after Dickey-Fuller and stationary, after var estimations, and only after that there will be var SOC. And you will have such a table. Nothing is understandable here. So what does it mean? You see, here's a special sign. So here is a special sign for some features. You see here, and you see that 1, 2, 3, 4 tests, they have this sign for number 1, and 1 test have this sign for leg number 2. So 4 tests says you, okay, you need take leg number 1, and 1 test said you need to take leg number 2. So 4 tests for leg number 1 and 1 test for leg number 2. For sure, I choose leg number 2 or number 1. I'm sorry. I choose this one because 1, 2, 3, 4 tests said me 1 leg. So okay, I will take 1 leg. But keep in mind that there is option to use 2 legs, because if you have some problems, for example, autocorrelation, we will discuss it a little bit later, you could say, okay, I remember that there was 1 test that allowed me to include 2 legs, and you could come back and you could take it into account, and okay, I have 2 legs. So keep it in mind. So let's now write down our model again in accordance to the leg that we found. Because remember here, I I wrote it, but I wrote it based on our VAR estimations that we made without definition of lag. Here we had 2 lags, and I remember I said, I just asked Stata to define these lags. I didn't find whether they are optimal or not. And now I found that the optimal lag length is 1 lag. So let's put this all equation together and to understand what I estimate right now. So I will make it before just asking your questions. Maybe you have questions. I think it will be the last for today, but I will put down the equation, the final equation, with a lag definition of 1 period of time. So, okay, I'm sorry. What is okay. So here I understand 1 lag. What does it mean? So I have rate here. It will be equal to alpha 1 rate t minus 1 plus alpha second 2, and here CPI t minus 1 and plus alpha 3 money supply t minus 1 and plus error term. Then I will have, okay, CPI t is equal to beta 1, beta 1, no, so beta 1 CPI t minus 1 plus B2 rate t minus 1 plus B3 money supply minus 1 plus mu, I don't know, just here. And the last but not the least is just money supply T is equal to, I don't know, B, let's such a way, gamma 1 minus 1, and again plus gamma 248 T minus 1, and here plus gamma 3 CPI T minus 1 plus I don't know, just something like this. So these are 3 equations, and our goal is to find values of this one. So I forgot, I'm sorry, I forgot constant here. For sure we will have also constant, just here is, I'm sorry, for example, R1, it's constant. Here is, for example, B1, and here there will be C1. So constant term. Remember last time we said, okay, we could have constant. So my goal is to get estimations. And I found that I have only 1 lag, and that's the reason why I put it right here. Only 1 lag. So my goal right now is to get estimations, get the meanings of all these in red lines variables. So this is my goal. This is my final goal. I made the photo because I also have some classes with Chinese students, and I'm afraid that I could just eliminate, you see, there are different formulas, and I'm afraid that when we meet next time, next Monday, I will just eliminate this slide, but I need it. And that's why I made a photo of it to be sure that I don't forget it. So this is the thing. So before I ask your question, maybe I will just a little bit show you some results. And again, we will discuss them later. You see here, I know lag lengths. I found lag lengths. I know that it is for 1 period, and that's why I put it in the same common. So I made var, 3 variables, and then I put this comma and lag 1. So, and again, I have here three equations as previous time, and I have estimations here. and they a little bit, they are not just a little bit, they are similar in some sense with the previous one. And I like the most the equation for first equation you see here, just quite good estimations, and I like it. But still remember that we need to think about the equation and think about some results. And we will also discuss it last time, because we need to think why there are any problems here. Why they are positive. I put in a red circle some significant factors, and I forgot this one. For sure, this one is also significant. And I think that next time we will start from order, and why orders matter, why order matters. Because here I didn't think about order. I just put it in sense that I thought. But this was a problem for me, because I need to take them in some order as well. So this is Cholesky decomposition. It's not for today, so don't be afraid. This is for next our meeting. And we will discuss what is it, what does it mean, and how I could implement it. So now we have 8 minutes, and I think maybe we could just discuss some questions, or if we don't have questions, I could maybe just make a conclusion for materials that we had today, that we discussed today before we end, because as I understood, we had 7 minutes more.
Okay, yes. I think it's really interesting, yeah. When the analysis say about the results, we can choose one leg or 2 leg. And when we can choose 2 leg, so we can say that we have one of in the left and one of on the right, like that. It's like what's the name it 2 tail 1 tail, like that, or difference?
No, it is not it is like likelihood function, or maybe I didn't understand you. You said about lag definition, right?
Leg definition.
Yeah, you could choose 2 legs, or you could choose 1 leg. Sometimes, for example, I advise you to do in such way. Choose the leg number that have the most tests that advise you to do it. So, for example, 4 tests in our case said you should use 2 legs. You use it, you include them in your equation, and if it is bad and you don't like it, you said, okay, I have an option to use only 1 leg. So just when you have option, when you could choose different numbers of legs. So I think this is a good idea that different tests give you different results. I mean, tests about leg definitions.
Okay, like the leg definition. Okay, it's I think it's refresh for me, because I so long time ago used time series, and usually in that time I using cross section. So I think it's refreshing from my yes, remembering about time series, like that. Okay, students, are you have some question for our speakers? I think. Okay. You say about you explain about the money equation, or about the consumption and money. And for other topics, usually for method using in what variables, can you explain me about the more variables can using with var?
Yeah, for sure you could influence more variable, but the problem will be in Cholesky decomposition. So next time we will discuss that you need to think about and think in details what factor influence first, secondary, and thirdly. And when you have a lot of variables, because for sure money supply depends on whole set of variables, a lot of variables.
Okay.
But if you include them in your equation, it gives you a problem because you will think, okay, this is the first, this is the second, this is the third, and who is the fourth? So for you, it is a problem to make the list of most important and less important in terms of influence on the dependent variable. What is the answer? To think about disturbance, because in disturbance, there is an influence of other factors. So you could test it and you could, okay, all other factors and their influence, I take into account in disturbance term. When you told about cross-section is great in this sense. But if, and again, remember about your first question today when you said, okay, how do you understand that you need VAR model? So cross-section and VAR model, how do you understand? For example, if I live in interesting year, for example, in Russia now it is quite interesting year.
Yes,
and if
absolutely.
I take on the if I take on this year, I see nothing, just because it is quite interesting year, and researchers, they are just afraid to make only this interesting year in their research. So it is more interesting to include it in the total list of some years. So last year, previously 10 years, and this interesting year inside it. And okay, to analyze it with others, to understand how it differs from others. So in the pool of all variables. So maybe it is the idea. Or if you take cross-section, for example, for Russian regions during this year, because we have a lot of regions, you could more, for example, use cross-section and say, okay, I would like to know how will this year differ from others. And in that sense, you could use cross-section, but still, it really depends on representative year that you include in it, because only 1 year in cross-section.
Yes,
so
I think in the time series have a unique method when we can think about the longitudinal times and year and like that. Different, so really different with cross-section.
All of them in cross-section time series, they are wonderful. They are really very interesting for us, but they are different. So different purposes.
Yes, maybe we can collect data cross-section year by year, and then it's can using by time series like that.
Usually researcher make it such way because they would like to demonstrate that their coefficient, their estimation, they are stable. So they say, you see, I have this estimation in cross-section, I have this estimation in time series, and they're the same.
Okay. One more question for me.
Sure.
Is it different when we using data periods when in the normal economics and different with the turbulence? Is some years have turbulence like in Russia in this period like that? How the more interest when we use VAR, we can using the turbulence data or normal data?
Usually when you have turbulence data, you have such methods, for example, to include fiction variable. So variable that has only 2 values, 0 and 1. And you put 1 for this year and 0 for others. And it helps
like
you.
A dummy variables.
Dummy variable. You include dummy variable inside, and it helps you. So time series and dummy variable for this year. So in Stata, for example, in panel data analysis, for example, the one for this. Or you could just put 0 for others and 1 for this year in the timeline. So you could use dummy variable for this period, and it could help. Sometimes there are interactive variable when you multiply dummy on, for example, GDP, and you have dummy and multiply on GDP, you have 0 for other years, and here 1 multiply on GDP. So it also helps.
Okay, I think it's more interesting, when we can classify about the turbulent years or turbulence time and normal times like that, and we can see the difference of the output in PDRP. In the GDP or in the, I think in the inflation rate, maybe like that, about the economics variables, macroeconomics variables, especially.
Totally.
We should to explore about the
we need to wait a little bit. We need to wait more data, a little bit.
Research data, I think it's meaningful about the econometrics.
I totally agree.
Okay, is it enough, Kate, for this meeting?
For me it's enough. So if students have any question, I'm sorry, so feel free to email on this email address. So I will try to answer as soon as I could. Oh, I'm sorry, mistake, sorry.
Calm down.
Gmail.com. I'm sorry, I was in a hurry, and that's just now it's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I think when our student not sending you emails, maybe I am and can sending you emails with all of my questions.
Sure, feel free. I will be happy to get it. So feel free, please.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I will closing this meeting. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your explanation. It's so really amazing for us. I think we only have one more meetings. I think it's about the next or continue about the PAR methods like that. I think I will wait for the next week or the last meeting. Maybe in the last meeting, you will accompany with Mrs. Vidya. I think I will we have some other schedules like that.
Okay.
And yes, okay. Thank you very much for all of you in that time, and see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Oke, terima kasih banyak untuk rekan-rekan semuanya. Jangan lupa mengisi presensi yang ada di kolom chat. Kemudian juga bisa meninggalkan room. Selamat pagi semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Kate. See you next week.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.